In this video, I want to take you through and guide you in graphing a somewhat complex transformed logarithmic function. So the one we're going to graph, so we'll say the instructions are to graph using the parent and transformations. In other words, I don't want you to just create a single XY table and try to plot points to graph this function. We're trying to explore the power of transformations and how they're useful for any type of parent function. Okay? Alright, so the function we're going to look at in this video is f of x equals, let's say we have let's go with 1/3 times 1/3 times log base 2 of negative x minus 1, and we will say minus 4. Okay, so again, pretty complex, lots of transformations here, but I'm going to guide you through it. I'm not going to work it out for you, but I will guide you through each of the steps and what they look like. So the first thing we want is the parent function. Okay, so the parent function is what you get if you strip away all the arithmetic, the basic multiplication, addition, subtraction that you see in this function. So it's going to look like y equals, it's going to be a log, and then you've got to figure out what base the log is, and the argument is going to be x. So it's going to be log base something of x, one operation on x. That's not arithmetic, okay? Once you figure out your base here, set up your xy table. So pause the video as needed to figure out these values. So in your xy table, you're going to plug in x values to this function to calculate the y values. So I want you to fill out the x column and then calculate the y values. Now this should be pretty easy if you understand logarithms. You shouldn't have to use a calculator to do this. And remember, don't forget in your x column fractions and whole numbers. Most of the time students forget one or the other depending on the problem, so don't forget that, and then calculate your y values. The next thing that is also easy to forget is to list your asymptote for this log function. If you were to graph this log function, you would see that when you start to graph it, you have an asymptote that's on the y-axis. So I'm going to give that to you as a freebie. The asymptote here is the y-axis, which is the equation x equals 0. Since the equation is x equals 0, it's an x equation, I like to put it in my x column personally. That way when I do x transformations, everything in my x column will change, and I won't forget about my asymptote. Okay? Alright, so there's your parent. We've got that down. Pause the video, make sure you're caught up to this point. The next thing we want to do is list our transformations. So let's work on the x transformations first. It doesn't matter if we do them first. Just picking one. Now, these are the hardest ones to do in comparison to the y transformations. So remember, for the x transformations, you have to extract what is inside your parent. So in other words, what's inside your log function. So you go to your transformed function, and that's this argument. So we extract that, and I'm not going to tell you how here, you should know how, but you use this to figure out your transformations. So there are two, so I want you to list your first transformation, and I want you to list your second transformation, okay? And I'll give you a hint. It is not multiply by -1 first and then subtract 1 second. It's not those in reverse either. So you may have to go back and review how to determine to get the x transformations. So pause the video, make sure you're caught up to that point. Next, we're going to list the y transformations. The y transformations come from what happened outside of the parent. So in that case, this is the log function. So the arithmetic that happens outside the parent occurs here. So use those to list your y transformations. There are two of them. So list your first, list your second. Okay? Pause and make sure you've got that done. Now, the rest of it's easy. And by the way, this process should get fast. Getting your XY table for a parent function should always be fast. The parent functions are simple. That's why they're parents. They're not transformed. Okay? Then, getting X transformations should be quick. Getting Y transformations should be quick. In fact, once you get good at this, you don't necessarily have to list out everything in this format. You can just do them. Do the transformations. Okay, so once you've got your parent and your transformations, we need to start graphing each of the steps. So you're going to start with the parent, which is what we have here, and then you're going to get a new XY table, list a new XY table, and if you want, you could even sketch a rough graph next to that. But the new XY table, depending on how you do this, either do the X transformations in order first or do the Y transformations in order first. It doesn't matter. You're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 transformations total. So you're going to get something like this after your first transformation. Okay? So if you're doing your first X transformation, manipulate your X column. If you're doing your first Y transformation, manipulate your Y column and leave the other column the same. Okay? So you're going to have 4 transformations. So after the first, you're going to get an XY table. Then you're going to do your second. You'll get a new XY table. Then you'll do your third. You'll get a new XY table. And then you'll do your fourth. And you'll get your final XY table. And you can see I'm using graph paper here, so make sure you are too. And so whatever your new XY table is with your new asymptote listed in the X column, do a nice graph here of what it will look like. And if you want, you can certainly accompany each XY table, intermediate XY table here, with a sketch of the graph as well, so you can kind of see what's happening to the parent. Okay? Alright, so do that. Feel free to do multiple transformations in one step. A lot of students will do that. Just be very careful that you get your arithmetic correct. Okay? And when you come back, you can check your final answer. Okay, your final answer should probably have some of these numbers in your XY table. I listed several, so you could kind of verify some of those. The asymptote should definitely be x equals -1, and your graph should look something like this graph, something very close to that. Okay, so if you don't quite have this, go back and double check your transformations, your arithmetic, your parent function, and kind of see if you can spot your mistake. Okay, there's a lot going on here. If you don't get the right parent function, nothing's going to work out. The tricky part about the transformations are the X transformations, so go back and review other videos to make sure you understand how to get those correct. But if you got it right, good job. If not, keep working at it until you get it.